A North Carolina athlete's family suing the state, saying he's missing out on millions of dollars in name, image, and likeness. Now at 7, how his case could affect thousands of athletes statewide.
The Nash County Sheriff believes drugs, alcohol, and mental health all at play in an early morning officer-involved shooting in Nash County.
Summer heat is striking back. I'm tracking where the mercury is climbing and our chances for showers and storms.
North Carolina's top high school quarterback is suing the state. He claims he missed out on a huge chunk of cash because of rules around name, image, and likeness. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ashley Rowe.
And I'm Dan Haggerty. What an interesting situation. So NIL has been, of course, a big debate in the sports world. It is legal in college, but in high school, it depends on which state you're in. For Faison Brandon and North Carolina, it is a no-go. Brandon is the quarterback at Grimsley High School in Greensboro, and his family says he had the opportunity to market himself and to make money. But in North Carolina, that is illegal for now.
WRAL's Aaron Thomas is following this story for us tonight. Aaron, walk us through this lawsuit. What's the main argument here?
Yeah, Ashley, so our team, we've been reviewing this lawsuit, and what it really boils down to is the family of Faison Brandon. They really see this as an opportunity for them to capitalize off of his time and talents in high school. So he was recently approached by a national trading card company with a, quote, substantial amount of money in exchange for signing memorabilia after he graduated high school. But with that ban in place here in North Carolina, it's an opportunity that he had to unfortunately turn down.
So we have 38 states right now, as you know, Aaron, that legalized NIL in high school. Why is North Carolina prohibiting it?
Yeah, so Dan, in fact, we actually took this question to a lawyer, a sports lawyer who represents different athletes, and he says that this really boils down to how a lot of legislators, how they view high school athletes. They say that it's they're amateur, they shouldn't get involved with any kind of NIL. He says these are similar talking points that we have previously heard for many years when it comes to collegiate athletes. You can take a listen to what he just said.
This is an extracurricular activity. They're not here as professionals. They're not working. This is something they should be doing either for fun or as part of the educational mission. And NIL, to the argument of some, doesn't necessarily square up with the mission of higher education or high school education.
And it's worth pointing out that a sports lawyer that we spoke with, he's actually based in Wisconsin. Just like North Carolina, that is a state that also bans high school level athletes from participating in any sort of name, image, and likeness activity.
Okay, so where do we go from here? What's the next in the case?
So the family of Faison Brandon, they are seeking at least $1 million. That's an estimate of how much they feel like they're missing out based on his time and talent over at Grimsley High School. He is a recruit for University of Tennessee. He's set to graduate in December of 2025. But of course, this is a case we will be watching closely. Behind us, we're here at Athens Drive High School. We do know that high school football season is well underway. Going to be speaking with many families and parents of high school athletes to see what they have to say. You'll hear from them beginning at 10 on Fox 50.
I'm sure they will have a lot to say about this. It's fascinating. Aaron, thank you. Keep us posted.
So $1 million is what the family's looking for. Look, this is the kind of topic we love to go in depth on. You might remember last football season, we were talking a lot about Tez Walker, a receiver at UNC. His story focused around the NCAA's transfer rules and whether he was eligible. But Walker and now Brandon, just a lot of the types of stories that have been changing the sports landscape out there. And we want to hear what you think about all of it. So send me an email, dan@WRAL.com. What do you want to know about NIL, the future of sports at the college or high school level, or even younger at this point? As always, you can send me an email about this or any other subject that interests you. Tell me what's on your mind, and we will go in depth.
A Nash County man is in critical condition tonight after a shootout with police. Officers were at James Breheim's house serving a warrant. Breheim tried to run off. WRAL's Chelsea Donovan explains what happened after that and why he was wanted in the first place.
We go to domestics day after day after day.
And that was the case early this morning here on Regis Store Road. A woman went down to the magistrate's office to take out a warrant on this man, 52-year-old James Breheim.
Deputies, while getting the warrant at the magistrate's office, I think that they overheard the conversation between the husband and the estranged wife, knew it was a volatile situation.
Lieutenant David Walker and Sergeant Miguel Salazar and 2 other deputies responded. They knocked on the door, but Breheim came out the back with a gun in his hand and fired.
It was basically an ambush type situation. There were several shots fired. The defendant was struck multiple times.
Breheim is recovering at Wake Med but will face charges when released. Sheriff Keith Stone said mental health was at play in this situation, and it was a house deputies had been to several times before.
There were threats of self-hurt, and that's one of the things where if you have mental health facilities and things of that nature that are available, you can get people help.
We have seen the dangers of serving warrants before, having gone along with the Nash County Sheriff's Office as they served warrants for drugs and other crimes.
Law enforcement today is under more scrutiny than ever before. They have to make split-second decisions, and it's a life and death. It's a very dangerous operation.
In this case, Sergeant Miguel Salazar fired his weapon in May during this home invasion. This is the second time in months he's been involved in an officer-involved shooting.
You know, everybody wants to know, is the officer okay? Physically, the officer's okay, but you think about the mental strain.
The 2 deputies that fired their weapons are currently on administrative leave with pay. The SBI is also conducting their own investigation. That's standard protocol. Chelsea Donovan, WRAL News, Nash County.
All right, let's get you caught up. Here are 5 things you should know right now. NC Highway 55 is clear after someone died in a fiery crash on the busy road. This all started around 1 o'clock near the Triangle Expressway on-ramp. Crews closed the road there for hours. We're told the driver is the one that died at the scene. The driver in the other car went to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. Chapel Hill police are looking for the people who spray painted the town courthouse over the weekend. They left behind some violent messages. The Orange County DA called them despicable. The graffiti appeared after dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters held a rally in Peace and Justice Plaza. So far, no arrests have been made. Crews in Wake Forest confirm kitchen grease is to blame for the sewage spill at Joyner Park. We told you about this last Friday when they closed the pond and nearby trails. Raleigh Water says cleanup efforts in and around the pond are expected to continue for the next few days. They really don't know when the pond and trail will reopen. The town of Cary finished a street safety project on Walnut Street just in time for the first day of school. They shrunk it from 4 lanes to 2 between Byram Street and Carytown Boulevard. They also put in bike lanes and highly visual crosswalks. This comes less than a year after police say a driver sped down the road and then hit and killed a 6-year-old girl. Other streets across the area could transform as well. And the first day of school starts tomorrow for Wake County's traditional calendar. WRAL's Destiny Patterson tells us what you need to know before the school year gets started.
Now, going into any school year, there's always a lot to cover, from transportation to safety. I mean, here outside of Green Magnet, you can actually see they've already got this welcome back sign here welcoming its students back. But let's start with busing. It's always a big topic. This year, the district will text or email you if your child's bus is running late, and that is new this year. The district says it has all of its bus routes covered. Heading into the school year, the district has 578 drivers. That's 18 more than last year. In the classroom, the district says it has 235 vacancies between teachers and instructional assistants. That's a 2% vacancy rate. The district is also using a new anonymous reporting app with the hopes of making their campuses safer. 4th through 12th graders can use the Say Something app to report concerning behaviors or even mental health needs. The first day of school kicks off tomorrow, and the superintendent will be here tomorrow as well to welcome back their students. Destiny Patterson, WRAL News, Wake County.
Here is a back-to-school story that just almost didn't happen. Look at some of this video here. This is amazingly where students went back to school. Student back in the classroom at Springfield Middle in Lucama, where an EF3 tornado damaged part of the building earlier this month. Crews have worked to this point around the clock to make sure the building was ready for students. The 6th and 7th grade hallways sustained the most damage, and those students are now using some other parts of the school to start the school year. Parents say it's been a community effort to get the kids back through the doors there.
Seeing the small community get together, uplift this school, and I'm sure it's going to be a good year for the students and teachers, and they'll probably create a great bond with having to rebuild back together.
Oh, I bet she is right. What a way to start the year. The Wilson County School District is still asking the community for donations as they continue to rebuild. We have a link for those donations on WRAL.com.
Who double checks that city councils, boards of education, and all of our elected leaders spend our tax dollars correctly? The state auditor, right? It's a big job, and it's on the ballot this November. Beth Wood, the Democrat who held the job for over a decade, endorses a Republican in the race. We'll explain why after the break. Kat?
And here comes the heat just in time for the kids to head back to school. The holiday weekend will present some changes, though, and I'll outline what to expect coming up.
The day is fast approaching. We are less than 3 months from Election Day now, and it's a big day. It's the day where we pick the person in charge of the free world. It's also the day we, choose the person in charge of local soil and water conservation. There are a lot of things to vote on, and we want to go a bit down ballot tonight and talk about what might sound like one of the most boring jobs in politics, the state auditor. Now, before you start flipping through TikTok or change the channel or something, you got to know this is an important job. You should know about it. The auditor makes sure that your tax dollars are spent correctly. For years, Beth Wood, a Democrat, was North Carolina state's auditor. She is not running this year, but she has some hot takes on the race, including why she believes you should vote for the Republican instead of her own party. I spoke to WRAL state government editor Jack Hagel about what is behind this endorsement and why it matters. WRAL state government editor Jack Hagel joining me now. Jack, let's start with this. It is rare to see an endorsement like this cross party lines, especially in today's politics.
That's right, but this isn't your typical race. This is for the state auditor. It's a highly specialized role that involves very specific skills and methods to uncover fraud and waste, the kind of stuff that takes years to really kind of perfect. Now, most states that elect state auditors require them to be certified public accountants, not North Carolina. And for the first time in 3 decades, voters won't have the option to choose a CPA for state auditor. Beth Wood is a CPA. She'd like to see a CPA in the position, but lacking one, she thinks that Dave Bullock is the most prepared for the job.
But if we look at preparation, one of the two candidates, Holmes, has actually been doing that job for the past 8 months, but she did not get this endorsement.
That's right. Beth Wood has been underwhelmed by the output of the office under Jessica Holmes. During the first 7 months of the year, we found that there were only 3 performance or investigative audits, these audits that sort of go above and beyond what the auditor's office typically does. Now, during the same period last year, under Wood, there were 14 of them. So there's quite a difference, and Beth Wood says that it has to do with the experience coming into the office.
Are Holmes and other Democrats reacting to this endorsement from one of the people in their party endorsing a Republican?
Well, now Holmes says that she's ramping up. She's spent a lot of time familiarizing herself with the audits that she inherited. She's repositioning the office. Meanwhile, the party, Democratic Party, no surprise, is backing her, saying that she's the most qualified to be the state's watchdog. And of course, they're trying to discredit her opponent, as they would with any political race. So
Wood, of course, a very well-known name, and I think we do have to consider where this endorsement is coming from. Many will remember how Beth Wood's career ended. She crashed her state-owned vehicle in December of 2022, around the time of a Christmas party. Video then showing her walking away from that crash. Later on, an investigation found Wood had been using her state-owned vehicle for personal trips. This is something she pleaded guilty to, and then stepped down from her job as auditor. All of those were very big news stories at the time. So considering all of that, how much weight do you think this endorsement carries?
Well, I think a lot of people remember Beth Wood for that incident and that case, but a lot of people also remember her for 15 years of service in the office. She was known for being an independent, for going after agencies run by Democrats or Republicans, and I think people are going to remember her for that, and she was held in pretty high regard. That is, unless you were the subject of one of her audits.
Makes sense. Jack, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, again, you might not see any nationally televised debates or convention speeches or Twitter memes for the state auditor's race, but it is important to know why that position matters a lot. The auditor's office is crucial for accountability. Last summer, the office found at least 20 public schools incorrectly reported how they spent COVID relief money. $69 million misreported. Last fall, the auditor's office found at least 6 public school districts had incomplete data on student attendance, including Johnston County schools. And earlier this year, the office found Fayetteville State University employees used university credit cards on $700,000 worth of unapproved purchases. That is your money and your public school system that they are holding accountable. So like Jack said there, the auditor isn't just a number cruncher, they're an investigator working on your behalf. And come November, you will decide who leads that charge for the next 4 years.
Fascinating stuff. Over here in the Weather Center with meteorologist Kat Campbell. As so many kids are going back to school, ooh, we've picked a hot one for them.
It's going to be a really, really hot week, especially after, last week so many of us were just outside for so much time. It's going to be tough to get outside this week in this heat. 70 degrees already first thing tomorrow morning at the bus stop. Plenty of sunshine, so that sun, the direct sun, not going to help with the heat. 96 degrees during the afternoon as the kids are heading home on the bus. So it is a steamy day. By 3 o'clock, we're at 97. As we look ahead toward 5 o'clock, 93. After school practices are my biggest concern tomorrow because kids are usually inside during the day. They may come outside for a brief period during recess, but it's the outdoor exercise, the sports practices after school that are going to be the big concern tomorrow. Please, coaches, if you are able to, limit the kids' time outdoors tomorrow. This is why it's going to feel like the upper 90s, and it is in the upper 90s tomorrow. Wednesday, 98 degrees, the heat index 103. 98 with a heat index near that heat advisory criteria of 105 on Thursday. And then Friday and Saturday, we stay in the mid-90s, feeling more like the upper 90s. It is the sizzling summer heat making a comeback. And we've got this big ridge of high pressure that's building in right now. I really don't even have to put the upper level high on the map because you can almost point it out where there's barely any clouds and no rain. It's circled right in here where nothing's going on. It's got sinking air, so that prevents the air from rising, condensing, forming clouds, and any kind of bad weather. For now, once we get to the weekend, that all is going to change just in time for Labor Day weekend. A cold front approaches from the west. It doesn't necessarily pass this weekend, but it gets close enough where it sparks these complexes of storms most days. It would mainly be during the afternoon and evening hours. And over the weekend, the heat backs off a little, but that's really only because of the clouds and the rain. It's still going to be humid. It's still going to have that summer feel. If we take a look at the daily rain chances, a small chance Thursday night as we get into the weekend. That chance goes up to 40% and a 50% chance on Sunday and Labor Day itself next Monday. As for how much rain we could see, generally speaking, about an inch is a good bet. There could be a couple of spots that see a bit more in the eastern part of our viewing area. A lot of concern with the football games. We've got our first home game at NC State and Duke later this week. UNC is away this week. 91 for your kickoff forecast on Thursday. I'll be out there braving the heat with you. A 30% chance of a storm Thursday for the game and a 40% chance for the Duke game on Friday. Kickoff temperature 86 degrees there on Friday. The WRAL Gardens looking beautiful this evening. Temperatures remain right around 90 degrees. It's going to get a lot hotter from here on out, though. We're going to be sticking with the heat all the way through the 7-day forecast. Those 80s you see Sunday and Monday, it's going to feel more like the 90s with the humidity. As we get toward the middle of next week, though, we could see the heat back off some. We'll start to get in some high-resolution model data in the coming days, so I encourage you, you'll definitely want to check in for an update as we get closer to the weekend. That's going to allow us to really hour-by-hour pinpoint when you could see storms, and we'll get a closer look at the beach forecast. I know that's going to be popular. It does not look like anything tropical will threaten folks at the coast. Good news there.
Good news.
So that means we won't be dealing with the same kind of rip currents that we've been seeing?
Not necessarily. They just won't be tropically induced.
Okay.
We were talking about, will the pools stay open for a little longer because we got this kind of summer heat lingering, but this is when it starts to dwindle around this time of year.
And a lot of lifeguards, they got to go back to school, back to college, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Kat.
Today marks 104 years of the women's right to vote in the United States. North Carolina's place in that history, well, it's kind of complicated. We're unpacking it next.
Then our one last thing that we want to share tonight, your photos from back to school. We're back in about 2 minutes.
Today marks 104 years since the U.S. legalized the women's right to vote. The 19th Amendment was certified on this day in 1920. 2/3 of the states had to sign off on it to make it law. North Carolina wasn't one of them, at least not in 1920. Our state didn't officially ratify the 19th Amendment until 1971. Women's suffrage had huge support across the state. Ella St. Clair Thompson was notable in North Carolinian and the National Women's Party. Raleigh was home to the North Carolina Equal Suffrage League. Flyers like these were passed around the state, putting in bold letters, "North Carolina women do want the vote." If North Carolina had said yes, the 19th Amendment would have had enough states to become law. Instead, it lost by just 2 votes. In the end, Tennessee was the state that put the amendment over the goal line. North Carolina lawmakers tried to stop them. They sent a letter to the Tennessee General Assembly saying the amendment would interfere with the sovereignty of Tennessee and other states of the Union. Of course, that didn't work. Women across North Carolina and the nation won the right to vote, whether the more stubborn states signed off on it or not. In the 50 years that followed, those states came around, ratifying the 19th Amendment one by one. Mississippi was the last to do it in 1984. Many of the women who led the charge in 1920s North Carolina never saw their home state officially accept their right to vote. But their work, of course, was not in vain. 104 years later, not only are women a critical voting bloc, but they can be found up and down the ballot. We've got so much to thank them for.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it really is.
So look at the entire journey, right? You forget how long some of these things take. So one last thing we want to share with you tonight is that back to school for much of our area. All day long, we've been asking you to send in your back to school photos, and you haven't disappointed. Thank you to everybody for sharing today.
Everybody's looking great, by the way.
Well, thumbs up.
Yeah. Thanks for making WRAL your choice for local news. Our next newscast is at 10 on Fox 50 and 11 on WRAL.
Have a great night.
Keep watching WRAL News over the air Channel 34 and Spectrum Channel 1257.